Good morning, interweb. Welcome back to the Artifexian podcast. In this month's episode, we start the show with a bunch of topics that have little to nothing to do with world building, video games, Irish mythology, the Kendrick Lamar Drake beef, cringe dad rap, and AI art. Bill says we can all steal his creative output and profit from it. Brackets checks notes. Yup, he definitely said that. It's Child's Play this month as we hear an excerpt from an Abheskii children's book. And then we wrap up proceedings with some conlanging chats. Differential object marking, cases, demonstratives. Hashtag Niet Baba Kulch. All that plus lots more in this month's episode. Follow-up, Bill. Well, actually, this isn't really follow-up. I just have a whole bunch of things that have been going on in my life that I'd like to just talk to you about. Most of this has zero relevance to anything we've done on the show to date. So I guess we'll just call this section like pre-show, maybe, as opposed to follow-up. I don't know. Can I launch into it?
Sure.
Baldur's Gate 3. I love the captain, my wife. She is the best of people. And my love for her increased like tenfold when she turns to me within the past like 2 months and goes, Edgar, will you teach me how to video game? And I was like, if I was not already married to you, I would be proposing right now. So what we've done is the captain and I, in probably the most wholesome thing ever, we now in the evenings, instead of watching telly, we play video games together. She plays, I kind of like I play along, I conduct, I help with things, etc. So I was like, we should try Baldur's Gate 3. It doesn't require like very dexterous control of the controller, you know. You can take your time. It's not about reflexes. Very story focused. It seems like a good kind of beginner thing, and she's aware of D&D as a thing and has played D&D before, so there was an in there. So we start playing, and it really quickly becomes apparent that for some reason her natural state is to use inverted camera controls when moving the camera in game. So that is so for me, the natural way of moving a camera is if I move an analog stick to the left, the camera moves to the left, right?
Did we not discuss this in the last episode?
Did we discuss this in the last episode?
I think so.
We didn't discuss this in the last episode. Hold on. No. In the last episode, we had Spice Bag, St. Patrice's Day, reference grammar talk, Lang Time Studio, phonological reduction in AAV, and Cairn stuff. We definitely didn't talk about this.
This sounds really familiar, man. I saw it in the show notes and I thought it was going to be like a follow-up on having discussed it before.
Really? Did we discuss this last time around? No. Okay, well, we're already knee-deep into it. We're just going to go through it again. Listeners, I'm sorry, I'm aging. Anyway, my natural thing is move joystick left, camera pans left, move right, pans right. Her thing is to invert that and also invert the y-axis, which I think is pretty weird. That baffled me straight off the bat. And I think it's because she had some... her father ran a sort of like media company or worked in a sort of media company. Satanta Ireland is what they're called. You might know them. Back in the day. And she did some like... She was there on field a lot in her youth, so she got accustomed to cameras. And she likens it to the idea of like, if I want to pan a camera left, I have to push the back of it to the right, you know? So her mental model is kind of literally moving a physical camera, where mine is just kind of like point in the direction you want to see. So anyhow, all this is to say is I was like, that's no problem. You're having problems with the camera. Let us go into settings and let us invert all of the cameras and you'll be grand. Baldur's Gate 3 does not let you invert the settings. You cannot invert the camera, which is just like an accessibility feature. So she literally cannot play the game because it's like teaching someone to be like right with your left hand. It's just no fun. Or if you're right-handed. And you're basically never going to be very adept at it. And so we just had to give up on Baldur's Gate 3. It just doesn't work. And it's really annoying. That's really frustrating that a really basic camera feature is not in the settings. And apparently, Baldur's Gate 3 overrides the system settings on a PS5. So if you have invert all axes at a system level on the PS5, such that it applies to all games, Baldur's Gate 3 again just doesn't. It just turns that off. So you literally can't do that, and it's an accessibility issue. Bad Baldur's Gate 3, be better.
I mean, I agree with you every bit as much as when we had this conversation before.
We definitely didn't have this conversation. Why would it be in the to-do for episode 87 if we had...
I've no idea, but I maybe it wasn't on air.
Could have been. It could have been not on air. Are you? I hear you clicking. Are you listening to the other show by any chance?
I'm looking through the transcripts and stuff. No, it's not there.
How are you looking through the transcripts? Are you using some sort of tool?
No, just like the YouTube built-in transcripts.
Oh, yeah. I'm confident we haven't talked about this. I really am confident because it was in the to-do for episode 87.
I mean, there's no other way I would know that that it overwrites the inversion controls on PS5, and I definitely already knew that.
Okay, well,
I didn't learn that when you told me there now.
So what we're going to do is we're going to leave this in, right? Again.
Oh, absolutely.
Good. I'm aging. I forget things. Like I would expect to forget things I've talked about a couple episodes ago, but if we did in fact talk about this last episode, that's just extra hilarious at my expense. And it just also on a serious note, let me just restate that because again, Baldur's Gate 3, that's an accessibility feature. You need to have that there. Come on. And I appreciate that. I think it's most players are like me. They don't want their X. I think most people don't invert the X controls, and I think basically no one inverts the Y controls. So I guess it doesn't affect most people, but like for the people it does affect, it's so bad. So yeah. Anyhow, we're playing Final Fantasy 12, the Zodiac Age at the moment, and it's going great. You can invert camera controls in that 20-year-old game. Baldur's Gate 3, take note. Okay, point one. Point two. Tongues and runes. Did we talk about this the last time as well, Bill?
This does not sound familiar.
Okay. So there is a YouTube channel and podcast called Conlangery. Links in the description, hosted by George Corley, and on said channel for the past number of months he has been doing a live stream series where he creates a D&D language, his own D&D languages. Season 1 is concerning a draconic language called, I'm going to pronounce this incorrectly, but Ndukka, I think, and what is effectively ages ago now because our recording schedule has been weird of late. He has finished up or has been in the process of finishing up that language, and as a sort of like celebratory sort of thing, he invited myself and a bunch of other YouTubers and Conlang people to have a D&D one-shot where he got to use this language in its proper context, in a D&D context. So that was and I'm forgetting how to pronounce this as well, the Xeshor Tablet, I think it was the name of the one shot. Links in the description. Go check it out. I'm on it. George is on it, obviously.
Cool.
Bib is there. Agma Schwa, David Peterson. Was another person? Oh, and then Joey, who language creation conference people will know of, was DMing it. So it was just a bunch of fun. I had so much crack. I thought it was a barrel of laughs. George did a great job. George wrote all the music for the thing, which is just amazing. He wrote the intro theme. He wrote the battle music. Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful stuff. So go check it out. It's about 3 hours long. Go on a nice walk. Have that playing. It's worth it. Well worth it. And hopefully we'll be back for another one. Hopefully they'll have me back to do season 2, whatever language is done in season 2. So yeah, shout out.
So it was a one shot, but it's going to be turn into something larger is the plan.
I don't know whether or not there be connections between the various one shots, but I think
I get you.
Yeah, I think the idea is that every time a language is finished, new one shot, and then we get to see the language in context. I think that's it. But maybe there is overarching things. Like certainly I would want to bring my character back and just have him run amok again. I played a 75-year-old ex-sellsword turned licorice salesperson. Because of course I did. And it was a lot of banter. I'd like to bring him back. Oh, and his name is Liko Rish. Spelled, I think Luifodh, first name, and then second name is Raois. Because of course I did. So I would love to bring him back. So I'm hoping there's some degree of connectivity if I'm invited back and if we do these things. But yeah, so anyhow, the Xeshor Tablet, Tongues and Runes, Conlangery, all in the show notes. Go check it out. Now, that was the next point. Next point on my part is auto-captions. A while ago, I forget the listener. I'm so sorry. But a while ago, someone wrote in, either via Reddit or email, to say that, hey, is there any chance we can get auto-captions in other languages for the podcast? I looked into this. This is kind of difficult to do, but not a thing I can do. Basically, I tried to make this happen for the podcast, but you need to upload an English transcript first. You can't use, as far as I can tell, the auto-generated English subtitles to then have the computer make other languages out of that, if you see what I'm saying. You have to upload your own, custom English transcript, which is at the moment kind of prohibitively cumbersome, because this is like a 1.5 to 2 hour show. To generate captions on this is a little bit difficult. It's not impossible. I think I can make it happen in Premiere Pro. I'm still looking into that. And I think as well, there's probably some AI tools online where you just throw an MP3 file at it and it spits back a well done transcript with all of the timestamps and things like that in it. Because a transcript is not, or at least a good transcript is not just a text file, like just with words. It's got timestamps, etc. So auto captions in other languages for a long video slash MP3 is a little bit cumbersome. I am looking into it. I have heard the feedback and I'm trying to make it happen. Just bear with me on that. That's just a little PSA, Bill. Just thought I'd stick it in there.
Sure.
Cool. The next thing is the mythological cycle. Again, this is just not related to anything at all. Do you know about the mythological cycle? I'm assuming you do, like the Irish mythology.
There's a bunch of cycles.
Yeah, the mythological cycle, I believe, is one of them. Is one of the 4?
As in, one of the cycles is called the mythological cycle.
Yeah, Sorry, is
I
the mythological cycle a blanket term for all of them? Oh, it could be for all of them. I can't actually remember. Anyhow, listeners,
I don't know.
I can't remember why this was the case, but I just started reading a bunch of Irish mythology. I don't know why I started doing this, but I just did. And basically, Irish mythology is kind of like, it is vast. There's so much to it. But there's kind of like, there's a few heavy hitters in this, and they're called like cycles. You have things like the Ulster cycle, the Fenian cycle, and I think there's 2 other cycles. And they're basically just a collection of myths, from Ireland. So I got a notion one day and started reading through it. And I just wanted to bring this to Bill because some of it is absolutely hilarious, right? So the mythological cycle is, and I'll link this in the show notes. In Irish, it's the Lawer Gawala Éireann. Right.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
You do know this. Excellent. That's great, because I'm very uninformed when it comes to mythology, so we could help each other out here. But if I just give me one moment while I bring up the page, because I'll read a little bit of it now here. Yeah, this is insane because it's like a pseudo history of Ireland that connects itself to like biblical history in just really weird ways. So, for example, we have this opens with a person called Xeshor, I think is how we would pronounce it, who's a daughter of Bith, son of Noah, as in Noah from the Bible, right? And
wait, which of Noah's sons?
Bith, Bith.
Oh.
Yeah, daughter. So like they literally, the impression I get from reading this is that someone was kind of like, geez, this Bible thing is really great. We should try and tie Irish history into the Bible. So let's give a son of Noah, let's give them a daughter. And let's say that they're the kind of like founding father, if you will, or founding daughter of Ireland, so to speak. It's just mad. Now Xeshor, daughter of Bith, son of Noah, was the first to found Ireland after the beginning of the world, 40 days before the flood, in the year of the age of the world, 2242. And it talks about the flood. exactly like the Bible. And Yuan Kasser goes up to Noah and is all like, hey, I'd like to be on this boat because like God's going to flood the entire world. And Noah's like, sorry, lass. The God was like, I gave you names. I gave you like an itinerary for the ship. It's only the people on the itinerary. You're not allowed on the ship. So she kind of like forsakes God, like begins worshipping an idol, and then it tells her kind of like pseudo followers or whatever to go and build a boat like the Ark and sail from like the Caspian Sea around the Mediterranean and up to Ireland, specifically Ireland, which I think is just nuts. Like the idea of like, tribes in, ancient Israel, that sort of area, being all like, to Ireland we must go. And like there's like, she has Kesser along with Bith, Fintan and Ladra, the men who accompany Kesser in coming to Ireland, etc., etc. Just there's a Fintan just shoved into the biblical narrative here. Like, it's so odd. It's like it reads almost like really bad like fanfic, where it's like a mashup between different genres. It's just absolutely hilarious, like. And and stuff like and hearing Noah and places like Dún na Mark mentioned in the same place is just, it's absolutely hilarious. So I've only read a little bit of it now, to be fair, but I find this just so much fun. I'll link to the document, the full Lawer Gawala Éireann, if anyone's interested. I just think this is such a weird bit of kind of like, I guess fiction, pseudo history, mythos. It's just mad. So strongly recommend.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure the Book of Invasions.
Book of Invasions, yeah.
Yeah, the Lawer Gawala Éireann was written by monks.
I did not know that, but that does not surprise me, because it seems very much like we need to tie this into the biblical narrative to give it some sort of like air of legitimacy. And
do you know the band Horselips?
I do know. Links in the show notes.
So they've got an album, a concept album based around the Book of Invasions.
Oh, is it any good, and what's their concept?
I haven't listened to it in a while. It's good. It's not as good as The Tawn. I mean, The Tawn is a fantastic album, but it's still pretty good.
I gotta say, I am not familiar with the output of the Horselips. I know vaguely who they are. Are they the N17 people? Or N41?
No, it's the Saw Doctors.
That's the Saw Doctors. Links in the show notes.
Horselips are Derek Doom, which then became the Put 'Em Under Pressure, like the Italian 90 football anthem. You know that one?
I do, yes.
Yeah. So that's from a different concept album, also inspired by Irish mythology, about the Tonbo Coolnia.
That is the cattle raid of...
the cattle raid of Cooley, yeah.
Of Cooley, that's it, yeah.
Cuchulainn and Maeve and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Which is it's a really good album.
Listeners to this podcast, not to the Horselips, there might be overlap. I don't know what the Venn diagram looks like. It is very much worth, if you're in any way interested in Ireland. I know we have a couple of people who are of Irish descent, or people who just like learning the Irish language and things like that. Hibernophiles, exactly. I would strongly recommend looking into this. There's just some great stories. As with any mythology, there's just some absolutely wonderful stories. So I would recommend looking at the cycles. Like I said, I'll leave a Wikipedia page, the general overview of the mythos, and then I'll specifically link the Lawer Gawala Éireann so you can have a read through. Just great stuff. Absolutely great stuff. Speaking of music real fast, while we're kind of doing not really follow-up, sort of pre-show, sort of rambling, I know it's almost like ran its course, but this Kendrick Lamar Drake beef is just the greatest thing ever. That song, Not Like Us, is such a banger, man. It's really good. Oh my God, I've been listening to that thing on loop, out of the, I've long kind of forgotten the context of this this beef, but just the tune on its own, what a tune. He's so good. He's so good at the music, Bill, is Mr. Lamar.
I haven't really kept up on his new stuff in a long time. Good Kid, Mad City is one of my absolute favorite albums ever.
It's a great album, yeah.
And To Pimp a Butterfly is obviously fantastic, but it's too much. I can't take it in nearly.
I've not heard To Pimp a Butterfly.
It's good. It's good,
Yeah,
but it's heavy and it's kind of difficult in some ways.
A bit avant-garde.
Yeah. There's an element of that. Like I always think that Good Kid, Mad City is like as good as kind of pop music can be, like in a broad sense of pop music, like in terms of the story it tells, and like, you know, it's the level of art that it ascends to, and then Pimp a Butterfly is something else. Like it goes beyond that and into something a lot more kind of cerebral or something. I don't know. Both brilliant, but as I said, yeah, the Pimp a Butterfly I find a bit more difficult.
I think people generally rank To Pimp a Butterfly above Good Kid, Mad City.
Yeah,
I think that's seen as kind of his magnum opus. But speaking of things that are just absolutely not cerebral, I had a listen to that new Eminem song, and putting aside the offensive nonsense in it, like, it's just so bad. Like,
I haven't heard it. I have no interest in it.
yeah, I mean, the only reason I listened to it is just because it just kept showing up on my social feeds or whatever. But it is like the opposite of cerebral. It's like nostalgia based dad rap. Like it's really cringe. And like, I realize Eminem hasn't been on it in many, many, many years. But this is the first time I've listened to him and thought, like, this isn't just like you not hitting your heights. This is just cringe. Like, this has gone straight into cringe category, and like, you really need to retire here, buddy. Like, we've moved on. It's just not for me at all. Also, while we're on the subject of music, real fast, we shouldn't dwell on this because we need to actually do some work.
We're so far behind schedule.
Yeah. But there is at the moment, anyone who's familiar with Anthony Fantano will have maybe come across his review of a song called The Spark by our national broadcaster, RTE Kids. They have this YouTube channel called RTE Kids, and they released a song with a bunch of like 7 to 10-year-olds rapping this rap song, and it is kind of a bop. It is really odd, and it's getting wider attention outside of this fair isle. So I just want to amplify that a little bit. I'll pull in the show notes. We don't need context to this. You can just go listen to it. You don't need to know what it is and what's happening. So have a listen to that in the show notes. The Spark. Great crack.
Both those songs are on my Summer Jams playlist this year.
Well, the Eminem song and The Spark.
No, Not Like Us.
No, I know.
The Spark.
I know.
Okay.
Oh no, I'm sorry. There's so much. Okay. I might cut this. If there's just a gap here, listeners, we just talk for an extra 15 minutes for no reason. On the Drake thing, there's this song. He has this song out where it's like a remix of that song "Hey There Delilah."
Oh, and it's done in like patois.
It's Wagwan Delilah.
Yeah.
What? Like, it's so... What is it? It's just so dumb. Like, I think people were speculating it has to be AI. It's so Sorry, I shouldn't swear. But like, what? Just everyone needs to go look for that as well. Or I might put in the show notes. Or do I really want to be putting in the show notes? It is Drake after all. But yeah, Wagwan Delilah. What are we even smoking? Okay, right. Final point on my end before we actually do some world building is just on the topic of AI. I mentioned we might use some AI tools to get the auto transcript going. I've had a thought about AI and I want to see what you think.
Okay.
AI art, right? Mm-hmm. You know the way it has a particular look, like a very particular look.
A very kind of soft... Yeah. No, I don't have to describe it really, but I know the thing you mean.
Yeah, you know when DALL-E has made an image, it looks AI, and it's got that this kind of intangible quality to it, at least at the moment. I was watching the Apple keynote recently where they brought a whole bunch of AI stuff, and I watched various other keynotes from other tech companies, and they're all it's the summer of AI in everything basically, and lots of companies are injecting that like art style into their OSs. So like they'll, for example, Apple will generate new on the fly emoji using these I guess I don't know if it's a large language model, but those like generative AIs, and all of these newly generated emoji have that particular AI generated look. And I'm thinking, if this is a thing that's not just kind of a fad, and kind of like sticks around. I'm wondering if this could be a era-defining thing where in like 30, 40 years, people will look back on the 2020s, and like the way we picture the aesthetic will be defined by that sort of soft art.
Yeah.
Because in my mind it could go both ways. One, this is just like a .com bubble, and like give it 10 years and we're just not talking about AI. They've been relegated to like performing menial tasks in OSs and not being front and center. Or it literally explodes and everything is AI. And in which case it's gotta be a strong like aesthetic, cultural sort of or leave behind a strong aesthetic, cultural legacy. I'm wondering, do you see where I'm coming from? Do you feel this?
Yeah. I see what you mean. That like it'll be like Art Deco for the 1920s.
Right.
Yeah, that'll be seen as the iconic image or the iconic aesthetic. Potentially. What I have heard is that apparently the youth are turning against or have turned against AI art, and they think it's really cringe.
They think it's cringe.
Yeah, it's like apparently I've just read this a couple of times like on Twitter or whatever. I have no verification for it. But
Sorry,
they say
Bill, you need to refer to that social media platform by its correct name. Shitter.
They think it's cringe. They call it boomer art, and it's just like it's really embarrassing to use it.
They call it boomer art. Like, but that's so funny because it's literally the opposite of boomer art. You know, like I guess,
mean, you know, like, they just mean old people, I guess.
yeah, art enjoyed by old people. But that's the thing. Like, is it a thing that old people enjoy? I don't know about that. Well, unless we're equating millennials with boomer here. And the word boomer means my generation, then sure. But like the actual boomers, actual old people, I don't think they know what's going on, to be honest with you.
Well, I mean, they're just like seeing it all day on their Facebook feeds and not recognizing it as AI.
Oh, I suppose. Yeah. I forget that Facebook exists and that sort of boomer culture exists over there.
Look at you.
Yeah, I know, right? You're not on Facebook, are you?
I am, yeah.
Are you using it? Like, I'm on Facebook, but I haven't logged in about like 5 years.
I do use it because it's the only way I have of contacting some people.
Oh, that's so, man. Facebook won. You know, like that's exactly what they want. They want it to be like we're the only place to do this. Like it's just, I'm still sad that WhatsApp won as well because that's just an extension of Facebook won. Like I was perfectly fine sending texts via plain old SMS, and now everyone is fecking on WhatsApp, and we all have to go through WhatsApp, and it's just like, why are we constantly making monopolies of these companies? You know, it's just very, very silly. It's not silly. Sorry, it's just that we're being forced that way by companies, and it's just mad. It's good
to hold them in common.
We should hold them in common. That's right. Privatize everything. No, not privatize. Publicize. What's the opposite of privatize? To make public.
Socialize.
Yeah, socialize everything. I'm glad that the Zoomers and the Alphas find it cringe because I too think that it's not that it's particularly cringe. It's just that I think it's like ethically not great to just kind of like scrape data without any sort of consent to make garish looking images. It's the method, not necessarily the output, that I have issues with there.
Environmentally damaging as well.
Yeah, because just the computational resources to do all these things.
And
it's just
water and energy. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The world's a great place, Bill. Speaking of great worlds, what a transition this is. We got an email from Corey Stevens asking about eCairn, if you'd like to address that.
So Corey Stevens sent us an email. I won't read out the whole thing, but they've asked, would it be permissible for me to include a reference to our boy Yar? This is my recurring character, Yar to Yarthen. Even though he isn't a character in any of my stories. The idea is that sometime after the Abheskii develop radio, Corey's people, let me try to get this. Zaichi,
sure.
They get radio interference of Yarta Yartlin's name, and in their language it sounds like Ya Te Ya Shen, meaning "is it you, God?" in their language. and I would really like this to be an unexplained Easter egg in my story. So yeah, I think that's kind of cool. That's a nice little Easter egg. It doesn't seem like it, specifically inserts itself into my continuity or my canon, and I really like that.
What do you think of the further thing that Corey says? But this hinges on Bill's decision. Will Abheskii develop radio at some point in the future, or have they already developed it?
Yeah, I'm sure they will.
Okay.
I'm sure they will. They don't currently. I'd imagine it would be a little while away. Perhaps not in Yartayarchen's life, but I'm sure the name can still be remembered by people.
Because he is no worthy character. He'll do something horrible that will just like have him. The history will remember him.
Corey, go right ahead.
I think this is a great question, purely because it brings up questions about like authorial ownership, I suppose. And I was really intrigued to see what you'd say about this, because I know there are people who are kind of like, my work is my work, leave it the hell alone. I think Game of Thrones is like that. I think George R. R. Martin is very much like, you can't be writing fanfic about my stuff. Make your own bloody characters.
Yeah.
And then there's other authors that are like, yeah, whatever, man. Like, I wrote my books. I'm happy out. You do whatever you want to do with these things.
There's a couple of reasonably successful published authors who started out as fanfiction writers. So
right, like your one from Twilight.
Oh, I forgot about that, yeah.
Yeah, it's was it a 50 Shades of Grey fanfic, isn't it?
50 Shades of Grey started out as a Twilight fanfic.
I started out as a Twilight fanfic, that's right. That's what the connection was. And I was very intrigued to see where you would fall on that spectrum. Would you be a Martin, or would you be a, what's the name of the author in 50 Shades of Grey? I don't know her name.
I can't remember.
Yeah. I'm glad that you are on the side of like, have at it. I think that's a good way to be, as long as people aren't like, literally interfering with your work. Like if you say you had a website, or if you posted all your, I don't know, let me try and come up with a really quick scenario. You posted all your work on some sort of forum or whatever, and but users spammed it such that like people finding your work, there would be no differentiation between their work and your work, for example, and that confused things. That's not great, obviously. But like in the context of this, I think it should be more than okay. So I think that's great. Well done. You passed the test, Bill. Fair play.
Yeah, like if someone was writing something that was drawing on my work and began to overshadow it, I wouldn't like that. Or if they were like profiting off stuff I'd created, and I wasn't, using stuff that I've put out there and then commercializing it for their benefit, I wouldn't like that. But I mean, this is someone putting in a very mild and a very fun Easter egg. Mm-hmm. So yeah, have at.
It reminds me of how one time at band practice, at band camp, we, the thing where amplifiers can pick up radio signals, like AM radio.
Sure.
It reminds me of the time I was at band practice when I was a teenager, and my little Marshall amp began playing German radio. And I just get the image of like, instead of German radio, it's just like Yarte Yarten's name. 15-year-old Edgar gets Yarte Yarten coming through his tubes, which is just very fun. Corey Stevens, thank you for the email. Now, I believe that's all of, again, pre-show, I suppose. Shall we do some world building? Okay, right. World billing. You know the drill.
So I've gone something a little different this week. This month. I haven't done that in a while. This is an extract from a book.
Not a letter. Interesting.
In entering the service of the company, any Abheskii possessed of the virtues we exalt above others, these being leadership, initiative, clarity of thought, and financial acumen, may become successful and the very envy of their fellows. Further, with proper training and discipline, these virtues may be cultivated and promoted, so that in the training of cadets, the companies do their utmost for the benefit of these young officers, and thereby the benefit of the Abheskii nation. To truly benefit the nation, we must first understand who we Abheskii are, a nation of diverse parts, no doubt, but possessed of a common history. We came to these lands from abroad. It is not known where exactly from. Some believe that one of the distant lands of Cairn is the place of our origin, but most agree that we came from another world. Traditional belief across much of the continent holds that we came from the sun itself, but others believe our origin is from Fasath, or Combien, or another point within the night sky. We Abheskii are an industrious, creative, and innovative people. Having tamed patches of the wild expanse of the lands, building towns and farms and trading posts, the most successful and prosperous of our ancestors founded the 5 great cities, Zhikav, Vilv, Otvev, Mirsphere, and Lansk. Though we live alongside other peoples, we hold ourselves apart. The Abheskii have distinguished ourselves twice by mastery over the skies. First, in building the mighty towers that soar over our cities. Some of these towers are centuries old and stand strong to this day, the least of them stretching higher than 50 people. In the last few generations, our supremacy over the air was proven again in being the first nation to recreate the science of powered flight. Our ships, lifted by mighty Dvint, broke us free from the shackles of the land. Trade is the blood of the Abheskii culture. Spread across this harsh and hostile continent, ever taming the ancient forests and defending against the great beasts, our trade is what makes the Abheskii prosper above all other people, and the companies are the pinnacle of Abheskii trade. Not restricted to one province, we can deal in goods from across the known world. Not bound to the paths of the rivers and coastlines, we can go anywhere our airships can carry us. Abheskii goods are prized from the tents of the Anshesi to the outposts of Hoitan, and if an Abwari baron wants to exchange letters or goods with a Nalmian chief, it is most probable that an Abheskii vessel will carry their intercourse. There are other practices that mark us as a peculiar people among our neighbours. All nations have their own calendar of celebrations and holidays, and the most important of ours is the Year's Rise festival. Though we differ on which precise day this takes place, Abheskii always celebrate the end and beginning of the year around the time of winter solstice. Other peoples reckon the year differently. The Urthani begin at the spring equinox, and the Abwari count from the height of summer. Other nations practice more curious calendars yet. Our other important festivals are the First Feast, which in ancestral times celebrated the first hunt after each winter, and the Late Summer Meat Day, where the harvest traditionally begins, and the year's differences and disagreements are put aside. Each city and town observe their founding dates. These may variously remember the day the first settlers began to build their new homes, or the day the first spire was finally completed, but always are celebrated with great revels and public entertainments. Though we are all Abheskii, we may have slight differences in our speech. The rapid speech of a city dweller may sound different to the calmer pace of a settler from the deep forest. The clipped vowels of Utvev are readily distinguished from the rounder syllables of Zhikav. The plain words of the groundsfolk contrast with the florid oratory of the wealthy classes. All these, however, are still Abheskii, and can readily talk to one another. Just try to understand the harsh Hoitani or the singing cadences of the Abwari to hear how truly different language can sound. Extract from A Child's Primer and History of the Abheskii, published by the Tamar Company Press.
Oh yeah, I completely forgot that I'd ask you for this week to write a bit of prose that will go in the reference grammar. Oh, this month.
Your turn.
That in a while. But yeah, I was like, we need something for the introduction to the reference grammar, and this is it, isn't it?
I guess, yeah.
Can I steal this and put it in the reference grammar?
Sure.
Oh, this is great. I love this. This does such a good job of kind of like, putting like tying a bow around all that we've kind of learnt about Icairn and the Abheskii. You name drop the various cultures, the various cities, talk about their traditions. Oh, just great. I love this so much. I cannot wait to copy and paste this into the doc. So I guess the usual, I ask you to give a summary, but I feel like I've just given that summary. It is the introduction to a reference doc, but if you have anything to add, say now.
So my initial thing about it, because all of my writing is diegetic, everything is within the universe, I found it kind of difficult to come up with how to write an ethnography and make it seem like it fitted in the setting. My initial idea... Pardon me?
Well, 1 second. Really? You found that difficult? I thought that'd be so incredibly easy. Like,
No.
it's a historian writing about his peoples, with the idea being that I'll write this culturally neutral, so if some Bini picks up this book, they won't need the Abheskii context to know what's going on. That seems so easy. Or it's a linguist out in the field writing about the culture of the place as background information. That seems like there's 100 avenues you go down to make this. You could go down to make this diegetic, easy diegetic.
I mean, I don't know, for the second example, that'd be like, okay, then that means that they have the concept of linguistics as a field of inquiry, and that they have the same approach to scholarship that we would expect.
Yeah, well, this is why you're good at doing this and I'm not, because I would have just been like, yeah, feck it, it's a linguist, it's grand. But like, certainly like a historian though, like surely all cultures have what is the equivalent of a historian. Like the like you said, these are humans, right? So the human need to kind of like write stories, or not even write, but just like pass on stories. And if there is writing, write those stories. It just seems like such a no-brainer that the concept of being like, this is a history book, done.
I don't think history books tell you what the culture is like as it is, though. Like, I can't imagine, like, going and reading a historian who's going to talk about, well, in Ireland, you know, on Sundays, there's GAA, that's a big deal. You know?
Yeah, or maybe, would it be, maybe the word, the field I'm looking at is like a chronicler? Would like a Greek chronicler chronicle everyday life? Is that a thing they would chronicle, or do they only chronicle like Medusas and all that crack?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like what person is going to be writing about just normal, the way the world is, the way our culture is for ourselves? Because we already know this information.
Yeah,
because we live it. That was the thing I found kind of awkward.
Yeah. Do you know what? You're right. The more you talk and the more I think about it, diegetic is not as much of low-hanging fruit than I thought it was. Yeah. Okay.
So my initial idea was that this would be for cadets entering the Tamar Company service if they were from a more isolated region. So like you're someone who grows up on a logging camp, or a farm like way deep in the forests, who doesn't have a lot of contact with the broader culture, and then they decide that, you know, they see the airships and they want to join the companies, and you need to kind of accelerate them to get them to catch up so they're kind of properly cultured. That's kind of where I started out. And as I went on, it became like maybe I aimed at a little bit younger. So kind of young teenagers or something like that.
The alphas.
And that's kind of where I ended up, just like, and then it was sort of building a national myth as well, like the act of creating what the culture is, because, you know, all these things are to some degree artificially constructed. And this is just the company saying this is what the Abheskii culture is, and kind of trying to make that what's the word, to reify that as a concept.
I think it does a good job doing that. I mean, I feel like the lack of biblical references here are, you know, if we are to compare it to Laur Gwala Aaron, is a bit lacking here. But no,
Well, it does say that they came from the sun.
it does, and we will get into that in a second. And actually, that's a good segue into me asking questions. The second paragraph, you go to truly benefit the nation. We must first understand who we Abheskii are, a nation of diverse parts, no doubt, but possessed of a common history. I found this and other bits in the prose to be kind of a lot more, I guess, liberal than I would have expected of this. I'm reminded of, okay, so when France won the World Cup in when did they do that last? I can't remember. Not this time around, but the one before that, I think.
2016?
It could be that. No, it wouldn't be 2016 because that would mean that this year there's a World Cup.
Sorry, it was 2016 Olympics and it was 2018.
It was 2018, yeah, because it'd be 2 years before World Cup. Yeah, I think it might have been 2018, yeah, because last time around Argentina did it. Anyway, none of that's important. What's important is that the French team, I believe, was 99% of them there were all not, air quotes, ethnically French. They come from African backgrounds. Mm-hmm. And there was a whole joke going around that Africa won the World Cup sort of thing. And Trevor Noah from that show what show is that? The Trevor Noah show? I can't remember. He's a comedian, a South African comedian guy. I'll link to him. He, I think he got in problems with the French government over making these jokes, and they issued a statement to the show to be all we are not, these are not African men, these are French, and reifying that it is unity in this sort of the French nation, and not acknowledging the fact that you can be both French and African at the same time, but very much being all no, French. It is French. Nothing else exists outside France. And I would expect the Abheskii to have that sort of attitude, to be we are Abheskii and that's it, and to kind of minimize diversity in favor of kind of homogeneity. It just seems like the more I guess culturally appropriate thing for them to do. So I found it really surprising that you mentioned at numerous points diverse we are diverse peoples, I guess, or even you say later on that they are peculiar peoples. This is not the words of kind of a hegemonic culture. So I would like to hear your take on that.
So that's a somewhat archaic usage of peculiar, which means individual or unique.
Okay.
It doesn't mean strange.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. No, in that context, then yeah, that's fine. But the nation of diverse parts, I would have. And I don't doubt that is true. They are a nation of the first part, but usually with kind of the hegemonic sort of things, they tend to try and downplay the diversity over the homogeneity. Do you know what I mean?
I see what you mean, but I mean they have to write for the reality that they exist in, which is that there are different dialects within it, and there are changes and there's diversity in how they express when they hold the festivals, things like that. They all have years rise, and this has been established previously, some of the cities do them at slightly different times than others. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it's just kind of acknowledging that. It's we're not all exactly the same, but we're all Abheskii, and them lads aren't.
And them lads aren't. Very good. In the next paragraph, you talk about the origin story of the Abheskii. So we came from another world. We established this before. There's a new name here, or at least a name I don't immediately recall. Combien. Mm-hmm. That's a planet, I take it.
Yes. So I've previously named that as Cradle.
Cradle.
Okay. And just Combien is just another word for it.
Very good. And I got to say, the romanization there is almost perfect.
Oh, what do I need to change?
The only thing you would need, not technically, you would definitely change it. You'd need to put a Y after the N, because that N is palatalized. It's combien.
Combien.
So to signal that, because otherwise the Y, not having a Y there makes it a normal N. But I gotta say, I looked at it, I was like, yes, Bill. Yes, this is good. I don't need to rewrite the entire shebang. I love it. I will put combien in the reference doc as under the list of things. And I'll just refer to it as a planet. Is that enough for you? In the list?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you which planet it is.
Oh, do the Abheskii have knowledge of? I'm sure they would have knowledge about order from the sun.
Oh yeah.
Ah, yeah, sure. Look, if they do, Bill, we may as well put in the number. What number is it there, Bill?
It's the fourth planet.
It's the
Fasath is the fourth planet. Combien is Fasath is the third planet.
Uh-huh.
Combien is the fourth planet, and Icairn is the fifth planet.
And is the okay. Done. Very good. Now, traditional belief holds that across much of the continent holds that we came from the sun itself. That's a new bit of lore that we've not talked about before, I don't think. Elaborate.
So when people came to Icairn from their place of origin, they came from that direction. They came out from the solar system. Like they went further out. So that just over time, whatever way language or whatever was used to say that became, we came from the sun. Like it's like instead of having come from the sun direction, that just turned into we came from the sun.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. Okay, I see. So it's like humanity originated on Mercury and traveled outwards to Earth, and they came from the sun, and that turned into they came literally from the sun.
Yeah,
like
Or like itself. If we went to Mars, and then in like 1,000 generations, because we came from the one that's closer to the sun.
Yeah. Oh, very good. And I guess that works kind of. I can see why people would start confusing that, because like the sun is a source of life, the morning, that sort of thing. That's pretty cool. I like that. I particularly like the idea that you've again. My brief was to talk about the Abheskii, but you put it in the greater context by talking about traditional beliefs as well. Love that. That is class. Now, the another paragraph down here. Though we live alongside other peoples, we hold ourselves apart. Again, love that. It strikes a sort of like Victorian era English people who think they're better than everyone else. Really love that. The really important thing here is on the flying. In the last few generations, our supremacy over the air was proven again by being the first nation to recreate the science of powered flight. Our ships, lifted by mighty Devint, broke us free from the shackles of the land. So this is important for me, just in terms of conlang. So these people came to this planet from another planet, okay? Mm-hmm. Right. But then you mentioned before, I think it was that they're in a sort of like post-apocalyptic sort of thing, or post like collapse, in they lost the ability to be able to do flight, but then regained it. Yes. And so that would imply that outside of the last few generations, the Abheskii people would have been perhaps like the Earthani, conducting trade on rivers, over land routes, that sort of thing. Yeah?
Yeah, overland, yeah.
Brilliant. Over land specifically, so the river not really their domain.
Not as much, no, not as much. It was like, yeah, they some did, but it was very much like that was the Earthani thing. They had that niche kind of under their lock.
That is really great to know, and I'm actually really glad I made a decision, Ori Conlang, which we'll talk about later, that actually gets rid of some river talk. Because I was just working on the assumption that they were almost like they and the Earthani back in the day were broadly indistinguishable. And then, the Abheskii kind of, I don't want to say became better, but became more dominant, we suppose. And then they look back on the Earthani as being primitive, i.e. they're kind of like the primitive form of them. So I was working on the fact that they would have been like a river trading culture in the proto stage. And I was thinking about drawing various different sources from that, like using words like sail and put to sea and things like that. So that is great that they're a land-based culture. That is wonderful, because that helps me in terms of lexical sources. So thank you for that. Now, peculiar peoples, we talked about that. The other peoples reckon the year differently. The Ertani begin at the spring equinox. The Abwari count from the height of summer. And then other nations practice other more curious calendars yet. Is there anything in that? Any sort of thought behind that? Or is that kind of like, well, the Abheskative is one thing, and just to flesh out, I'm just going to pick some random bits and bobs for the other cultures? Or is there anything deeper there?
Not really much deeper now. Just like different places you could start counting from. It's kind of arbitrary.
Yeah. I thought as much, but just in case there was something like a particular impetus there, I thought I'd see if I can get it out.
I haven't decided who, but I reckon that one of the other nations, let's say like that practices the more curious calendars, a year that it counts a cycle that does not match up with the solar year of Ecairn.
Nice. So like a religious sort of thing, a cultural sort of thing.
They count something that's more close to the solar year of the planet of origin.
Oh, that's a great idea. That is a great idea. I'm assuming this might be the B'ni because you said they're hopping back and forth. Would I be correct in that?
They're kind of above such concerns.
I love how mysterious these people are. Like, you really, if you ever do write about them in a sort of meaningful and prolonged way, it's just going to be a big letdown here because I'm thinking of them as being some sort of like higher being divorced from reality, like almost to the point where it's kind of like we're almost non-corporeal. I appreciate they are, but the vibe they give off is this: like they are just so othered. That if they turn out to be literally just like, the way the Abheskii came from a planet, yeah, we still do that. We just go back and forth to planets. That's it.
They don't have spaceships.
They don't have spaceships. Exactly, precisely because they're non-corporeal. they just drift on the solar wind. The feast day stuff, love it. First feast, meat day, absolutely beautiful. Really helps build an image of these people. Just great. I really enjoy the thing about these may variously remember the day the first settlers began to build their new homes or the day the first spire was finally completed. I love that and it makes perfect sense that is a celebratory day. But it just seems so weird because it'd be kind of like, let's all celebrate the putting up of the Empire State Building. Like it's a national holiday, Empire State Building Day. It's such a weird, at least from my perspective, it's such a weird festival to have. But given that it's so integral to the way they kind of form their societies, these spires in these great cities, it makes perfect sense. So it feels very our culture, and that's wonderful.
Cool.
And then the final point, I realize I am blitzing through this, but the final point on my thing is, again, I love the flavor you put in here. Quote, however, all these are still Abheskii and can readily talk to one another. That's on the different dialects. Just try to understand the harsh Hoitani or the singing cadences of the Ebwari to hear how truly different language can sound. And I like the idea of kind of like, the harshness implies, at least to me, the image I get is kind of like, oh, they're kind of very primitive, like animal-like. Yeah. And then the singing cadences of the Ebwari, that feels a bit like the mystic savage trope to me, where it's like, these people are primitive, but like, God, they're very kind of like, druid in the woods sort of primitive. So it kind of, just the use of those adjectives, harsh, and the singing cadences really helps portray a sort of like very nasty hegemonic culture while still also giving us a rounded picture of the world. And I think that is class. And like I said at the start, I cannot wait to shtick this in the reference grammar. This will be the best part about the reference grammar, Bill.
Don't know about that.
So those are all my points. What do you got?
I thought maybe that might mean that the Ebwari have a tonal language.
Oh, yeah. They could do that.
We ever get around to doing that.
Yeah.
And yeah, the harsh Hoitani. This is something I find kind of interesting because people often say like how German sounds so harsh.
Oh my God, Bill, nonsense. Cook, just cook, go for it. I know exactly what you're going to say, and I'm so here for it. It is insane that people are like, German is harsh. I think the people who think that German is harsh have only ever listened to that Hitler shouting meme.
Yeah.
And never actually listened to a German person speak. And I think that they are the people who say that German are harsh will, I think, also hold the opinion that French is beautiful in sing-song. When if you just go to a phonological chart of French and look at all of the back of the throat sounds they have, all the like those sounds aren't really in German. Like things that we as English speakers would consider to be harsh are present in French and not in German. Yet we call French sing-songy and we call German harsh. I hate that stereotype. German is it's a really beautifully soft-spoken sort of thing. yeah, it gets a bad rap, and it's just yeah. I think it's just silly. And to be honest with you, I think outside of a sort of linguistic interest / conlanging context, the idea of prescribing aesthetics to languages is a bit kind of stupid. Like this language sounds pretty or not. Like I don't care. Like it's not. Yeah. This isn't music. Like
it's very silly.
It's very silly. Yeah. But yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that's a pet peeve of mine. No, we shouldn't bash German. No German bashing on this podcast. Please and thank you, chat.
All languages are beautiful.
Exactly. But yeah, so you were trying to invoke Germanness there, yeah?
Not exactly. No, just that kind of attitude that it reflects a in a mild way the idea that the Hoitani are some kind of people because they have this harsh language. Mm-hmm. When it's not really that it is that at all. It's just the bias.
Yeah, precisely.
Just the stereotype.
Precisely, yeah. Yeah. Anything else?
Don't think so.
Okay, what are we? We're at hour 7. Great. We should crack on to Conlang because this might take a chunk of time.
Cool.
Okay, right. Not world building. What am I talking about?
Con billing. Bill langing.
Con billing. Pill langing. Oh wait, we can't portmanteau that in any other way. Bill langing. Yeah, I guess blanging, but that's just not the mouthfeel is not right there. To blang something. So anyhow, the Abheskii lang, right? We have just a mountain of stuff to talk about. We may not get through it all on this show, but I'll do my best, Bill. Number 1, I want to talk to you about differential object marking and whether or not this is a thing you would like. This suggestion comes from Keras Saryan, long-time listener, contributor to the show, just wonderful all-round human being, and my doppelganger. So I'm going to give you a quick spiel about differential object marking, what it is, and then you're going to tell me, do you like it, do you not? Okay?
Okay.
So, in a nutshell, differential object marking is what it says. It's where you mark the object of a sentence differently based on its semantics, right? So, it'd be like in a case marking language, if I say I eat cheese, the cheese may get marked in one of 2 ways, basically, depending on what's happening. This could be useful for Abheskii. Could be a nice thing to put into Abheskii. So, here we go. If you imagine the German sentence, ich esse den Käse, I eat the cheese, right? That's I in the nominative, esse, eat, a verb, and den, accusative article, that's important, accusative, and Käse, cheese, right? I eat cheese, cheese is in the accusative. Why? Because I, the nominative actor, am the one doing the action of the verb, and whatever is being impacted by the action, in this case, being eaten, will get marked in the accusative, right?
Yep.
So we know what's doing what to what. Ich esse den Käse, right? That is completely fine. Lots and lots of languages do this, but some languages go, well, hold on a second there, bucko boy. Why do we need to mark this? Because it's very clear. Like, I eat cheese. The only valid interpretation of that is that you, the human, is eating the cheese, right? And there is no valid interpretation that is the cheese is eating the human, right? Or at least that would be incredibly marked speech. So there's no need to mark the cheese in the accusative because it's perfectly clear, just given the semantics of the arguments involved, what is doing what to what, right?
Based on semantics. Okay, yep.
Based on semantics. So in differential object marking languages, in this particular example, they would go, well, there's no need to put the cheese in the accusative. So if German were a differential object marking language, you'd say, ich esse der Käse. I eat, I in the nominative, the cheese, der Käse, also in the nominative. No need to mark it because we know what's happening to what. Whereas if you said, like, I ate alligator, okay, in German. I don't know the word for alligator in German. It could be...
Let's go with crocodile.
crocodile. I actually don't know the gender of crocodile, but who cares, right? It could be equally likely that you are eating the crocodile, say, as a meal, or the crocodile is in fact eating you, right? Both of these actors, they're both animate actors, so they both could be acting upon one another. So in those instances, it would be useful to mark the object as an accusative, to be like, hey, the action, the verb is happening to this argument, right? And that's essentially what it is. In cases where it's perfectly clear what is doing what to what, no need to mark objects with the accusative. In cases where it's not clear, you can mark the objects in the accusative. And Keras's idea, which I think is pretty cool, is that you could do what Turkish does, and instead of the example I just gave that was based on animacy there, you could just do it based on definiteness, right? So if the object is definite, it gets marked in the accusative. If it's not definite, it doesn't get marked in the accusative. And you had mentioned you don't want definite articles. This is a way of doing definiteness-based stuff without necessarily having definite articles, if that makes sense. Ask questions. Tell me what you think.
Okay. There's a construction. This is a little bit tangential, but there's a construction you hear kind of in archaic English, which would be like, I ate of the fruits. I ate of the cheese. Is that a translation convention from some kind of object marking, do you think?
I don't know necessarily, but it strikes me as no.
Okay.
It's just the object in quotes is just in the genitive. This is not, that would not be differential object marking.
Okay.
Nice tangent though.
Thank you. Crocodile is neutral, by the way.
Okay, so that would have been a bad example because there is no
there's no difference. Yeah.
There's no difference there. So what do you think? What do you think about that today? If your object is definite, we'd expect it will take accusative marking. It'll take the accusative case. If it is non-definite, it takes just the nominative case. Right.
So if you're speaking kind of in generalities, like I ate cheese, that would be unmarked because it's non-definite. And you would mark it if you were trying to be a bit more specific.
It would be the difference between like if you mark it in the accusative, it would be like I ate like the cheese.
Yeah.
Right? And if you don't mark it in the accusative, it'd be like I ate some cheese or another.
I mean, like, I'm not like heart set on it, but I kind of like it.
Okay. It's one of those things that I don't think it's going to have lasting ramifications that you could pull at any stage. Okay. It's just literally a case of like a case switch, you know?
Yeah.
So we'll maybe tentatively we'll go with it. I'll write it up and then you can let me know if it no longer suits.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Let's do that. Okay, that's point number 1. Point number 2, cases. We talked the last time about how you wanted me to make all the cases in the world. You wanted lots and lots of lovely cases.
Yeah, 14 minimum.
Here's hoping that's not actually a serious suggestion because otherwise everything I'm about to say is a load of nonsense. But I have started working on this. It's going to be a while before this is done, just by the nature of the way I work. But I've come up with a tentative list of cases, right?
Okay.
I want to run it by you. And then, that's basically it. I'd have to check in later with the actual forms. I'm still working my way through this. So here's what I'm thinking. Nominative, obviously, the unmarked case. Yeah, all right. Vocative. You wanted a vocative you shall have. Accusative, genitive, dative. And stop me at any stage if you're like, I don't know what these things are. I'll explain. They're basically the core cases. A nominative, accusative, genitive, dative, plus your vocative. Vocative's a weird outlier. Then a locative case.
As in location.
Location, yeah. So in, at, that sort of thing. An instrumental case. Yeah. So that's like using something with something.
Yeah.
A comitative case, which is also with, but that's like to do with a person. Like I walked with John to the shop.
Yeah.
As opposed to the with in like I cut bread with a knife.
Because that would be instrumental. That
would be instrumental, correct. And then I also thought of having an abhessive case, which is a bit of a weird one, but it's basically without. So I walked without my friend. So the idea behind this spread, and those are the cases. Those are 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cases, including the nominative, which is, unmarked.
Wait, 9? So
9.
Nominative?
Nominative, vocative, accusative,
dative, genitive,
instrumental, dative, genitive, instrumental, locative, comitative, abhessive.
Abhessive.
No.
More like Abheskii.
The Abheskative. The Abheskative. The idea behind this is that usually with these case things, the locative gets split up into a whole bunch of like sub cases. You have like an ablative, which is for motion away from, an allative, which is for motion towards, all this sort of crack.
That's what the ablative is, okay.
It is indeed. And I just didn't want to do this here because it happens a lot, I suppose. And so I thought what might be kind of fun is to just have a singular locative case that covers all of those meanings, but then go to town with stuff involving the word with. So cutting with, being with someone, accompanying someone, being without someone, etc. To add a little bit of kind of like, I guess, case interest here. Because it's a little bit hard to do with just when you're, at least for me anyways, when we have so many cases. Usually I find it's quite nice when you have a minimal amount of cases to do weird things. But here, I think the weird thing is just Abheskii seems to be very concerned with the idea of withness. Thoughts?
I kind of hard to conceive of how you use the abessive.
Literally any place where you would use the word without, or the suffix less. So if you're like, I am homeless, that's just, would be just the word home in the abessive. Or I walk without my friend. Friend would be in the abessive. Anytime you use the words without or lacking, that would be where you'd use it.
Okay.
Now, it wouldn't crop up a lot, and there is a reason why we don't find the abessive, I think, in a lot of languages, because for this reason. But I felt like it fitted quite nicely with the other widths. With the I butchered that pronunciation so bad. The other widths, as in the instrumental, the comitative, etc.
Yeah. Cool.
You can yeet it if you want to.
No, I like it. I was like, I couldn't see exactly, but no, that does make sense. Cool.
And just a little bit of like, this would never be made explicit in the doc, but eagle-eyed readers could infer this. The comitative is a fun one because I thought about hard baking a sort of arrogance into the thing, where the comitative marker comes from the word lead, to lead someone. So it's not like the idea of, I guess the mental framework of these proto-Abheskii people are not that like we are doing this thing together, like at the same time, accompanying one another. It's like, no, I, the Abheskii person, am leading the other person. Like we are accompanying one another, but like the framing of it is that I'm placing myself at a more kind of like advanced position. And I just got the idea, this kind of like cultural supremacy that the Abheskii seem to have kind of like plays into that a little bit. Again, none of this would ever be made expressive, and it's kind of like a bit of a meta reason on my part. But I found that to be fun and interesting.
Sure.
Yeah. So anyway, those are the forms, and unless we have a problem, I'm going to plow ahead with those. I'm just in the process of making up the endings, see what they are. I have a bunch done here that might just talk at you so you can like test the mouthfeel.
Yep.
So we have a word ba in Abheskii, which is the word for water that you made up. In the nominative, that would be ba, right? Now, if we were to give this one of the two plurals we can give things, that would become bach, waters plural, I suppose, or baku, again, waters plural. So ba, bach, baku. Those are the forms in the nominative, various different singular plural forms in the nominative. In the accusative, those same forms would be bash, balsh, and bakulsh.
Oh, I like that.
I thought you might like the Slavic sound of that. So we have ba, bach, baku, nominative, singular plural, bash, balsh, bakulsh in the accusative. So if I were to kind of like make up a verb on the fly here, let's say a verb is, I'll just use the word niet from Russian, okay? Let's pretend the word niet is a verb in Abheskii.
It's the Abheskii verb to yeet.
To yeet, exactly. So if VSO construction here, verb, subject, object, you could have something like niet ba balsh. So like water, something, water eats water or something. Niet ba balsh. or Niet ba bakulj. I think that sounds super Slavic.
Yeah.
So happy?
Very much, yeah. That's a great mouthfeel.
Oh, thanks, man. I'm working on getting your nasal vowels into the dative as well, which is a bit... I'm finding it hard to kind of reconcile the nasal vowels with a sort of Slavic mouthfeel. But I will get there. This is a me thing, not a you thing. At the moment, I have like, for the same words, in the dative, I have like ba. I can't do nasal vowels. Fran, on. So ba, baha, and bacon. Ba, baha, bacon.
That's in the dative.
That's in the as it currently stands. It need not be in the dative. It could be in the locative, etc. But that's how the mouthfeel would be for if we had one of the lexical sources giving rise to a nasal vowel. And yeah, I'm not particularly happy with that as of yet because it just feels so radically different from the rest. Like ba, bach, baku, bash, balch, bakulch sounds like on brand. But then when we go ba, bacha, bakon, it seems just I get hit over the head with a baguette basically, and I'm like, whoa, that's a bit too much. So I need to work around that. But overall, happy with where I'm going.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, this will take weeks and weeks and weeks for me to finish, but eventually I'll come back to you. So that's that point. How are we doing? 1 minute 25. Okay. I think we can actually do stuff here. I think we can get this done. Jesus, no, we probably can't get this done. Okay, well, we'll try. Demonstratives. Can I talk to you about demonstratives and can I get you to make some calls as to what you want here?
Yes.
So demonstratives are words like this, that, these, those, right? So basically the question is what sort of a split of demonstratives you want. You have just a bucket load of options here, and I'm just going to run you through them, right? One, I'm going to say you're going to have some sort of demonstratives. It's just going to happen, I think, for this language. So the question is, the first kind of step of demonstratives is to have no distinction, right, between demonstratives. So there's no this, that. There's just the one word, this, right?
Right.
And we have this in German, right, where German uses the definite articles as demonstratives, but there's no this, that in German, at least not one singular discrete word, you know? Like, gib mir das is like, give me that, but I can't say, gib mir das. I'd have to use extra words. I have to go like, gib mir das hier, like, give me that here, or gib mir das da, give me that there. There's no singular word like in English that means this, that, etc.
Yeah.
So that would be a language that has no distinction in demonstrative. It's just one word for this/that.
Okay.
Got it?
Yep.
All right. So that's option number one. That's the most basic option. I need to remind you, basic options are fine. Don't feel the need to do the really complicated option, okay?
Of course.
Just look inside your heart and really think about your good friend Edgar here and the amount of work he's going to put into this. So that's option one. Option two. English, you have this, you have that. So you have a proximal and a distal distinction. So this is like this thing near, and that is that thing far away. Mm-hmm. This, that. Really basic, right? But I don't need to explain that. It's in English. You can augment these things with Lithuanian augments it, where you have this near, that far, but also have an additional form, I think, in Lithuanian that's kind of neutral with respect to distance. So like this, that, and I don't want to be specific. You can augment it like that, if that makes sense. That's option 3. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Option 4 is you have this, that, and yonder, right? So this close to me, that far away, and yonder, that thing very far away. Right, so you basically cut up the distance spectrum into 3 slices.
Okay.
And you can do that with respect, it's a complicated thing, with respect to a thing called the deictic center or respect to the person. So some languages just do like this, that, yonder with respect to the thing being talked about, and other languages do it strictly with respect to the speaker. So in Japanese, this is near the speaker, that is near the hearer, and then yonder is away from both speaker and hearer. That's a minor distinction that you don't really need to be aware of. I need to be aware of that, but just a little thing just to put in here. But basically, essentially, you're looking at, that's a 3-way distinction. That's the important thing to remember. Three-way distinction in kind of dividing up distance. You can go further. You can have a four-way distinction. You can have like this, that, yonder, and then just super yonder, right? Like very far away. Or in the context of speakers, this near me, the speaker, that near you, the hearer, yonder, not near any of us, and then yonder, super yonder, very far away from both of us. You can get rise to things like that. And so those are kind of the sort of like, I guess, in air quotes, standard-ish ones. But like you can go absolutely mental here. Like you can have visible versus non-visible. So this versus that we can see but is far away, versus yonder, which is invisible. So specifically invisible, right? You can do the same thing but for higher or lower elevation. So this at low elevation, that up there. You can do uphill, downhill. You can do upriver, downriver, motion away from, towards. You can go a whole bunch of ways in which you kind of locate objects in space. There's a fun example here from New Guinea, a New Guinean language, Hatam, where you have ni near the speaker, ma near the addressee, mo away from both of us, nu far away, nyo sloping up, so this sloping up or perhaps on the upslope, hu vertically up, and mu down. And they are all demonstratives. So you can kind of go absolutely mental there. So that's a barrage of information. Give me some thoughts.
I mean, there's still ways to convey that information without having it just be demonstratives.
All languages are able to express the full range of human thought. It's only a question of, will you need to... what's so funny about that one?
I don't know, just like... linguistic relativists hate him.
Because I do think some people do think that when we say things like... I'm sure, like, again, seasoned conlangers listen to this show, so it's not, avert your ears, you know this already. But I think at the beginning, you do think, like, when someone says this language hasn't got X feature, there's a sort of, it almost feels like it's implicit that they can't frame this in their minds or whatever. But all it means is that it's not been a grammaticalized thing. We have to use extra words. So like with the German example, you can say this and there, but you need to use extra words. Das hier, das da, and so on, So the question is, again, like how fusional do you want things here, Do you want lots of things to fuse down, or do you want to burn extra words, etc., etc.?
Just use extra words, man. Just keep it simple, I think.
Use extra. Okay. So, do you? Well, in that case, I don't actually need to ask, because if you're using extra words, you can always, like you can just say like this visible, this invisible, this upriver, this downriver, etc.
Or like they might compound or something, but.
I'm sure under some analysis, the German das hier, das da would be considered some sort of like, I guess compound's probably the wrong word, but like a sort of phrase in and of, like a preposition. Was it prepositional phrase? I don't know exactly. Or a determiner phrase. Would they be a determiner phrase? I don't know. But yeah, we could just do that. So essentially what you're looking for is you're looking for one demonstrative. You're looking for the German thing. One demonstrative that just means this, that, doesn't matter. And you can add extra words to that to be clear. Do you mean like this next to me, this next to you, this in the shadows, this visible, etc., etc.?
You can say this here, this over there, this yonder.
Exactly, exactly. Cool. All right, great. The way we're working the language, that word this is probably going to inflect for plural and case. I'm assuming you're okay with that. So you'll have a word this that will turn into the word these, but also like we'll get case endings. There's no English equivalent here.
These'em,
theses. It's almost like if you put case endings on English demonstratives, it becomes kind of like German. So I'm assuming you're okay with that, because that's going to have to happen here. Perfect. I can't believe that's actually us done, and we're at half past, which is literally perfect timing.
In under schedule.
Wonderful.
Hell yeah.
That is, we started late and came in on time. We must be professionals. Okay, that is us. I'll do some work on that as always, Bill. Come back to next week with some next month, Jesus, with some more con done. All right,
Great.
folks. Thank you for watching and listening. Chat. Thank you for being here. Hello to y'all. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you next one. So until next time.
I thought I was going to do it again this month. Damn it! That's twice now this episode.
I guess we're not professionals. I mean, we can do it again if you want.
Okay.
I feel like that. Is that not kind of like overcooking the broth? What's the word I'm looking for?
Over-egging the pudding.
Over-egging the pudding. Is that not over-egging the pudding?
Me doing it again?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we'll save it for another time, so.
We'll save it for another time. But we'll leave all this discussion in.
Oh, of course.
Absolutely. Okay.
Take it again there.
Wait, take what again there?
Until next time, because we didn't finish it.
Oh, right, yeah. Until next time.
Edgar out.